A sudden and heartbreaking announcement has just come from Buckingham Palace. The royal family is officially in mourning tonight, after confirming the loss of one of its most beloved members. The news has stunned the nation, leaving the monarchy shaken and the public searching for answers in the silence. The sudden word that filled the air. The palace announcement came at twilight, the kind of timing that turns a simple statement into a national moment. On September 5th, 2025, the royal family's official social media account shared a message that stopped the country in its tracks. The tone was unmistakably grave. "It is with deep sorrow that His Majesty, the King, announces the death of Her Royal Highness, the Duchess of Kent." In those few words, the entire atmosphere around the monarchy changed. It wasn't just the loss, it was the way the news hit. There had been no dramatic lead-up, no drawn-out illness in the public eye. The message came without warning, and for many, it felt like it arrived out of nowhere. Within 10 minutes, every major UK broadcaster was covering it live. Social media timelines filled with stunned reactions. Even the press, usually quick to speculate, paused to absorb the weight of what had happened. The wording used by the palace was intentional. "Surrounded by family," it read, a detail designed to offer comfort, and yet it carried deeper emotion. It suggested closeness, love, and finality all at once. And when that phrase was paired with "peacefully," it told the world that even royalty, with all its power and prestige, must eventually face loss, just like everyone else. Inside the palace, the reaction was immediate. Staff members were informed privately just minutes before the public statement. Aides were seen rushing between wings of Windsor Castle, and within the hour, black suits and mourning dress began appearing. According to one insider, there was a silence that fell over the halls. No one needed to be told what had happened. In just one evening, the royal family was thrust into mourning, and the country followed. This wasn't just another formal message from the crown, it was the start of a painful, deeply personal chapter, not only for those born into the House of Windsor, but for everyone who had followed the Duchess's quiet yet profound presence over the years. Who they lost, a life remembered. Catherine, Duchess of Kent, passed away at the age of 92. To some, she was a quiet figure in the royal landscape, rarely in the headlines, rarely on the front pages. But to those inside the palace, and to countless people touched by her decades of service, she was a figure of deep grace, compassion, and quiet strength. Born in 1933, Catherine became part of the royal family when she married Prince Edward, Duke of Kent, in 1961. She quickly embraced her role, taking on patronages and engagements with a deep sense of responsibility, but never with the thirst for attention. Her work with the Royal Northern College of Music, her commitment to children's education, and her emotional appearances at Wimbledon, where she served as the royal patron for years, made her beloved by many. In later years, she quietly stepped back from royal duties, choosing instead a more private life in Oxford, where she focused on teaching music and working directly with young people, not as royalty, but simply as Mrs. Kent. She gave up her HRH title in the late 1990s, one of the few royals in modern history to do so voluntarily. It was a decision that stunned the public, but revealed her deep desire for authenticity and peace. Her passing came at home, surrounded by her husband and children. No dramatic medical drama, no drawn-out illness on display. Just a quiet farewell, one that reflected the way she had lived. A family spokesperson shared, "She passed peacefully, with music playing in the room. She was at peace, and with her loved ones." That image of a royal surrounded by simplicity and love in her final moments left a deep impact on the public. But beyond the titles and roles, Catherine's legacy is rooted in the people she touched. She supported music therapy for disabled children, helped launch youth orchestras, and gave speeches about the emotional power of the arts in healing. In a world where royalty can sometimes feel distant, her work made her feel human, approachable, and heartfelt. She mattered, not because of grandeur or power, but because of how she used her position to uplift quietly. To the monarchy, she was a bridge between tradition and humility. To her family, she was a source of gentle strength. And to the public, she was proof that royals can lead not just with presence, but with purpose. The family gathers in mourning. The moment news of the Duchess of Kent's death broke, senior royals began making their way to each other, not as public figures, but as a grieving family. Within hours of the palace announcement on September 5th, multiple royal cars were seen arriving at Windsor and Kensington Palace. The Prince and Princess of Wales, still navigating their own recovery period, were reported to have called family members immediately. Princess Anne, already dealing with her own health struggles, was informed quietly at Gatcombe Park. Insiders described the atmosphere inside royal residences as still, heavy, and deeply emotional. There were no emergency meetings or formal strategy sessions, just quiet movement, hushed voices, and private embraces. According to one palace aide, the grief was personal this time. No planning, no press talk, just family trying to be there for each other. It was a side of the royals rarely seen, but deeply felt. While cameras caught only brief moments, those glimpses told their own story. Prince Edward, her husband of over 6 decades, was seen walking with bowed head, flanked by aides but clearly alone in his thoughts. Zara Tindall and Princess Eugenie arrived discreetly, dressed in muted black and grays. Royal watchers noted how no official photo call was made. It was intentional, a signal that this wasn't about public performance. This was private grief. Inside these royal homes, the family quickly began to support each other emotionally. Queen Camilla, known for her composure, reportedly helped coordinate early mourning protocol while staying closely beside the king. King Charles, whose deep respect for his cousin by marriage had spanned decades, was said to be visibly heartbroken, according to a close friend. The Duchess had been one of the few people who offered him comfort during the early days of his reign. Her passing left a quiet hole. This moment also caused a subtle but clear shift in dynamics. With the Queen and King navigating public statements and other senior royals supporting the family logistically, certain lesser-seen royals, like Lady Helen Taylor and Lord Nicholas Windsor, stepped in to comfort their father and cousins. Everyone knew their role, even in grief. From Balmoral to Sandringham, the ripple effect was felt. Whether by phone calls, visits, or quiet texts, every branch of the family acknowledged the loss. For once, royal protocol faded, and what remained was something far simpler. A family in mourning, leaning on one another in silence. The official response: flags, messages, protocol. While the royal family grieved privately, the machinery of the monarchy began moving into gear. Because when a royal dies, there is always a process to follow. And by the morning of September 6th, the signs of national mourning were fully in place. Buckingham Palace issued a second, more detailed statement, one that honored the Duchess's life of quiet service. The message, posted on the royal family's official account, read, "Her Royal Highness was a devoted wife, mother, and servant of the Crown. She touched lives not through spectacle, but through sincerity." It was the kind of wording that signaled this was no ordinary passing. This was the loss of someone deeply respected within the institution. The flags across royal residences were lowered to half-mast. From Windsor Castle to the Tower of London, the iconic Union Jack fluttered in still air, a symbol of national sorrow. For many, it was the first visual confirmation that the Duchess was truly gone. Visitors at royal sites were seen stopping, taking photos, and some even silently tearing up at the site. In central London, books of condolence were opened both online and in person. Thousands began pouring in messages, not just from the UK, but from former Commonwealth nations, especially those where the Duchess had made low-key but memorable visits. One message from Canada read, "You were the quiet strength of the Crown. Thank you for your service." The online condolence page even trended briefly as thousands of signatures and comments flooded in. Scheduled royal events were immediately postponed. A planned military engagement at St. James's Palace was cancelled, and charity visits by Princess Anne and Prince Edward were placed on hold. The BBC adjusted its programming, replacing evening segments with retrospectives on the Duchess's life, including rare interviews and archival footage of her patronage work. These actions, simple, structured, respectful, reflected how the monarchy handles death. They don't over-dramatize. They observe, pause, and signal through tradition. In the process, they send a clear message. This was a loss worth marking, not with spectacle, but with dignity. And while the public grieved with the family, these formal gestures reminded the world that every royal death leaves not just a family in mourning, but an entire institution quietly rearranging itself around the absence. The private grief behind the public face. Though the palace maintained its formal tone, behind the gates the grief was painfully real. For royals, emotion is not often seen. It's carried quietly behind perfectly tailored coats and carefully chosen words. But this loss, the passing of Catherine, Duchess of Kent, touched the royal family on a more personal level than many realized. The Duchess was not just a figurehead or a distant relative. She was a trusted presence, especially to the older generation of royals who knew her not by title, but as Catherine, the soft-spoken woman with a strong will and a deep heart. Her passing hit them not just as a public loss, but as the departure of someone who made their world feel steady. Inside the family, that composure started to show cracks. While appearing in public days later, King Charles III kept his head high, but photographers noted his tired eyes and quieter than usual demeanor. Aides said he was deeply reflective and had spent time going through handwritten letters from the Duchess that he'd saved over the years. She had once comforted him after Princess Diana's death. Now, her absence reopened old wounds. Behind the scenes, Queen Camilla reportedly helped manage much of the emotional space. Known for her strength in stressful moments, she was described by staff as the backbone during the mourning period, ensuring meals were prepared, calls were made, and support reached every member of the family. But even Camilla, according to one staff member, was seen sitting in silence at Clarence House, holding back tears. More quietly affected were the extended members, Lady Helen, Lord Nicholas Windsor, and the Duchess's children. They were rarely in the spotlight, but in this moment, they were at the center of a deeply private farewell. It's said that all phones were put away, and no media statements were planned from the inner family, a sign that this was grief they weren't ready to share. Palace staff, some of whom had worked with the Duchess for over 30 years, were said to be devastated. One gardener at her Oxford residence told a local paper, "She'd always ask about our families. Not many royals do that." In the end, while the world saw black coats, bowed heads, and solemn processions, the real mourning happened in the quiet corners, where the loss wasn't just of a royal, but of a woman who had made herself a part of their hearts. The media storm and public reaction. As expected, the death of the Duchess of Kent triggered a massive media wave. But what wasn't expected was how personal and emotional the public reaction became. The moment the palace made the announcement, newspapers rushed to release tribute editions. Within hours, front pages across the UK featured headlines like "A Royal Heart Silenced" and "Catherine, the Quiet Force Behind the Crown." Unlike other royal passings that often stirred debate or controversy, this was different. The coverage was soft, almost tender. Broadcasters like the BBC and ITV aired special segments with archival footage of her past engagements, showing her smiling as she visited hospitals, stood quietly at youth concerts, or knelt down to speak to a child in a wheelchair. These weren't glamorous clips, but they captured what made her special: genuine connection without fanfare. Social media lit up in tribute. For hours, the hashtag Duchess of Kent trended in the UK, and surprisingly, globally. Many younger users admitted they had barely known her name before, but upon reading her story, they felt moved. One post read, "She didn't chase the spotlight. She gave up her title. That's the kind of royal I respect." At the same time, the press was walking a careful line. There was a deep respect not to cross into the usual frenzy of speculation. Instead, royal reporters focused on her legacy, her retreat from public life in the late 1990s, her choice to go by Mrs. Kent, and her work teaching music in state schools under no royal label. These stories, once niche, were now at the center of national conversation. Still, not all reactions were quiet. Some questioned why such a significant figure had received so little attention while she was alive. Why had her story, a woman who willingly stepped back from privilege to live simply, not been celebrated more openly? A columnist from The Guardian asked, "Have we overlooked the royals who serve silently?" In the end, the media coverage did something rare. It pulled back the curtain gently, and the public responded with sincerity. No scandal, no drama, just a wave of heartfelt remembrance. It reminded people that even in a world obsessed with celebrity, quiet legacy still speaks the loudest. Impact on duties, ceremonies, and royal life. The death of the Duchess of Kent sent shockwaves through the royal schedule. Within 24 hours, several official engagements were either cancelled or postponed. The royal family's calendar, usually planned months in advance, suddenly fell silent. A military ceremony at St. James's Palace was removed without notice. Princess Anne's upcoming engagements were quietly paused, and Prince Edward pulled out of a planned event with no formal explanation. This wasn't just out of respect, it was a signal. When the royals cancel appearances, it's rare. When multiple do it at once, it's serious. The mourning period took priority over everything else. Royal events like garden parties, ribbon cuttings, and speeches were replaced by private gatherings and memorial planning. Even routine palace tours were adjusted to reflect a more subdued tone. Behind the scenes, staff reorganized timetables and worked closely with charities connected to the Duchess. The temporary halt showed how deeply her loss was felt. Business as usual stopped. And while the monarchy is built to endure, moments like this remind the public that when a royal dies, especially one so respected, the entire rhythm of royal life changes, if only for a while. The emotional strain on the monarchy as institution. For the monarchy, the loss of Catherine, Duchess of Kent, wasn't just personal, it was symbolic. She represented a quieter era of royalty, one rooted in duty without spectacle, and her passing raised uncomfortable truths about the future. The royal family has always stood on tradition, continuity, and strength. But with King Charles undergoing health treatment, Princess Catherine recovering, and now this unexpected loss, the image of an unshakable monarchy has been tested. Behind palace walls, the emotional weight showed. Aides close to Queen Camilla noted that she seemed more subdued, and internal briefings were described as low-spirited. The institution was grieving, but it was also recalibrating. Who fills the quiet gaps left by royals like Catherine? Can younger royals carry that same sense of quiet dedication? The death forced the firm to look inward. It wasn't about one life ending. It was about what kind of monarchy will carry forward. The pressure to remain strong publicly while navigating real emotional loss is a burden few can understand. In Catherine's absence, the royal family isn't just missing a person. They're missing a piece of identity, one that may never be replaced. A turning point, remembrance, reflection, renewal. The days following the Duchess of Kent's passing became a period of quiet national reflection. The palace confirmed plans for a private funeral service respecting her lifelong wish to avoid grandeur. Scheduled for the second week of September, it would take place in St. George's Chapel, with only close family and friends in attendance. No public procession, no global media broadcast. A fitting farewell for someone who chose simplicity over status. Tributes poured in. King Charles released a personal note calling her a woman of deep grace, quiet wisdom, and unwavering service. Zara Tindall shared a rare comment, describing her as family, mentor, and the kindest soul I've ever known. For once, the monarchy allowed emotion to lead, not tradition. Behind the scenes, this loss also sparked conversation, not just about the past, but about the future. Can the royal family preserve that humble spirit in a changing world? Will newer royals follow her example? The Duchess's death may mark the end of an era, but it might also plant the seed for a new one, built less on hierarchy and more on humanity. The legacy and what it means for all of us. In her final chapter, Catherine, Duchess of Kent, reminded the world of something timeless. Legacy isn't built in front of cameras or captured in headlines. It's shaped quietly through everyday kindness, quiet service, and meaningful impact. Unlike many royals of her era, Catherine never sought the limelight. In fact, she stepped away from it willingly. And in doing so, she taught us that sometimes the most powerful presence is the one that doesn't need to be seen to be felt. Her legacy lives on in the thousands of lives she touched, not through grand speeches, but through moments that often went unnoticed. Her decades of work with music charities, especially her efforts to bring music education to disadvantaged youth, created opportunities where there had been none. Even after stepping back from public duties, she continued teaching underprivileged children in inner-city schools, often without revealing who she was. To them, she was just Mrs. Kent, a kind, patient woman who believed that music could change a life. Her decision to give up the use of the style Her Royal Highness in the late 1990s shocked many at the time. Royals simply didn't do that. But Catherine wasn't interested in protocol. She was interested in peace, privacy, and purpose. That act alone marked her as someone different, not rebellious, but deeply self-aware. She didn't need a title to serve, and her influence only grew after she walked away from the spotlight. For the royal family, her passing is more than a personal loss. It's a turning point. Her life presents a model of royalty that's rare today, one that values substance over ceremony, compassion over control. In an era where image dominates and spectacle sells, Catherine's approach was the opposite, and that made it powerful. Her loss challenges the monarchy to reflect. Will it continue to rely on visibility and tradition alone? Or will it take cues from her example and embrace humility, authenticity, and quiet strength? To the public, her death brings a different kind of grief. We mourn not just the passing of a duchess, but of a royal philosophy, one that felt grounded, accessible, and deeply human. In a family often defined by protocol, she represented something softer, more genuine. Her presence reminded us that service doesn't always come with fanfare, and that real impact often happens behind the scenes. In the end, we're left with a question that hangs in the air. Will the royal family carry her spirit forward, that rare mix of dignity and humility, or let it fade with her memory? The answer may define more than just her legacy. It may shape what the monarchy becomes in the years to come. As the royal family mourns this profound loss, the public joins in quiet reflection. This moment marks more than just a passing. It's a reminder of the fragility behind the crown. The question now is, how will the monarchy move forward after a loss that has touched its very core?